After much effort over generations, humans finally managed to create true magic. It wasn't something consciously desired, but an inevitable advancement. Then came the idea of connecting magic to blood, making it hereditary. With this, they began searching for ways to transfer this power to the future. Over time, magical abilities began to manifest in people. Since blood is inherited, the creators protected their achievements by ensuring that magic was passed down through the bloodline. The country of Ustia is known as the Nation of Magic. There, the nobility uses magic to defend the people against invaders and monsters. In exchange for this protective role, they maintain a high status and significant privileges. Among the magical nobility of the country, the House of Marquis Friendbrid stands out. Hermes, a baby from the family, is next in line for the title. From an early age, he demonstrated immense magical power, being recognized as a prodigy. In the past, the Friendbrid family held the title of Duke, but lost territory and prestige due to having no heirs skilled in magic, being downgraded to Marquis. Considered a declining lineage, all hopes were placed in Hermes, treated as a miracle destined to restore the family's greatness. 4 years later, Hermes eagerly runs to his father to tell him that he was praised in his magic lessons. The teacher said he has the greatest potential among students his age. Proud, his father declares that he will be the greatest mage the family has ever had. Hermes is praised by everyone around him who place high expectations on him. His father dreams that he will be as powerful as the legendary kings of old or their great ancestors. His peers admire him, and teachers eagerly await to see just how much hereditary magic he truly has. Hermes listens to it all with confidence and determination. Chris, Hermes' brother, is constantly compared and belittled by his father for not showing the same magical ability. While Hermes is admired as the example, Chris is called pathetic. The hereditary magic, or lineage magic, is explained as a power passed down through blood, further increasing the pressure on Chris. Hermes excitedly talks to Katya, his childhood friend and heir to another duchy, telling her that lineage magic is exclusive to the nobility and far more powerful than ordinary magic. Katya, however, is more interested in playing than listening to explanations. Still, Hermes continues enthusiastically talking about magic. Hermes reveals his dream of becoming a strong and heroic mage, like the legendary characters he admires. Katya recognizes how much he loves magic and encourages him, believing he will succeed. Over time, Hermes continues growing with this goal in mind until he turns 7. During Hermes' magical evaluation, the examiner reveals that he doesn't sense any trace of lineage magic in him, something that should have manifested by now. The revelation shocks everyone, especially Hermes, who is confronted with the fact that he doesn't possess the power everyone expected. The kingdom's evaluator confirms that Hermes has no magical ability, 0 aptitude. The news shocks his father, who can't believe that the family's heir has failed. Others present lament, saying Hermes was not favored by God. It is explained that the amount of magic inherited depends on the purity of the blood, but this is determined by fate, not the person's worth. Hermes' father, filled with frustration, falls into despair as he realizes that all his plans to recover the Duke title through his son were in vain. Consumed by rage, he calls Hermes useless and violently attacks him, completely ignoring the boy's shock and suffering. After assaulting Hermes, his father locks him up and humiliates him without mercy, calling him worthless scum and saying he should throw him into the streets. He expresses disgust even for breathing the same air as his son, leaving Hermes shocked and desperate, calling for him in vain. Desperate, Hermes begs to continue trying, promising to work harder and do whatever it takes to become the mage his father dreamed of. But his father cruelly rejects him, calling him a defective product and stating that without lineage magic, he will never be the son he expected. To him, Hermes was abandoned by the god of the stars, making him unworthy. Hermes' father declares that he is not a gift from God, but the spawn of a demon. He says he will only free him if, by miracle, he manages to use lineage magic, something he himself doubts. As he leaves and locks the cell, Hermes is left alone, marking the moment when his life changes completely. Imprisoned and discouraged, Hermes reflects on the days that have passed and fears he may never escape since he cannot use lineage magic. Just when everything seemed lost, his brother Chris appears before the cell, calling him with a mysterious smile. Hermes, surprised, recognizes him immediately. Chris says he came to give magic lessons to his poor little brother and reveals that he knows everything. He then demonstrates his own powers with enthusiasm, boasting that he is chosen by God. With an intense smile, he activates his magic in a theatrical and powerful manner, leaving Hermes stunned by the scene. Chris attacks Hermes with his own magic, saying this might awaken his brother's dormant power. He does so with a cruel smile, as if enjoying himself. Hermes is thrown against the wall, injured, while Chris watches him with contempt and calls him pathetic. Chris reveals that he is merely punishing Hermes for ignoring him while being the father's favorite. Hermes, hurt, recognizes that he never thought about how his brother felt. He was so happy to be praised and learn magic that he didn't realize how much Chris was being left out. Now he feels the weight of it. Chris makes it clear that he will take Hermes' place as the heir and become the great mage he always wanted to be. While Hermes cries silently, imprisoned and humiliated, Chris laughs and leaves. Soon after, a girl approaches the cell and asks if he is okay. Katya finds Hermes injured and imprisoned, realizes that his father and Chris were responsible, and is shocked by the situation. Saddened that she cannot help him with healing magic, she holds his hand and apologizes, saying that even with magic, no one should be treated like this. Hermes, resigned, calls himself defective and says that just being able to eat is enough. But Katya interrupts him firmly, saying that she believes in him. She says that he wants magic more than anyone, works too hard, and that there's no way someone like him wouldn't have lineage magic. She promises to never give up on him, no matter what happens. Katya encourages Hermes firmly, saying that he will become a great mage and stand by her again. Motivated by her words, Hermes decides not to give up. He remembers that he can leave if he manages to use lineage magic, and with a renewed smile, promises to keep trying. He thanks Katya for returning his hope. Katya realizes she has been discovered, but before leaving, declares that she hates seeing loved ones imprisoned. With determination, she promises Hermes that he will get out of there, swearing firmly that it is an absolute promise. Hermes smiles with renewed hope, marking the beginning of a change. Even suffering in that horrible place, Hermes spent his days intensely dedicated to discovering his magic. His willpower to escape and Katya's constant support motivated him. These two things sustained his spirit and kept him steady in his quest. Even after 3 years of effort, nothing changed for Hermes. When he sees Katya again, he gets excited, but is soon surprised by the news that she will no longer return. With a sad expression, she apologizes, leaving Hermes confused and shocked. Katya reveals that she will be forced to marry Asura, the second prince, known as the greatest living user of lineage magic and the main candidate for the throne. She states that, as an heir to a duchy, she considers it an honor and has no reason to refuse. Hermes, surprised, questions if she will really accept. Katya tries to delay the wedding for at least half a year, but Chris appears with guards and cuts off any chance of that happening. He explains that thanks to her engagement to Prince Asura, the Friendbreed family has been accepted back into high nobility. Hermes and Katya are surprised by Chris's coldness and conviction. Katya explodes with anger upon learning that the prince refuses to see Hermes. Chris, now arrogant and proud, reveals that he has become Prince Astor's right-hand man thanks to his talent. He states that the entire Friendbreed family serves the prince, and that keeping Hermes imprisoned is a direct order from him, making it clear that the decision will not be reversed. Prince Astor declares that he has no use for people without magical aptitude and orders Hermes' elimination. Chris, obedient, commands the guards to take Hermes. Katya tries to stop him, outraged by the cruelty, but is restrained. As he is dragged away, Hermes calls out to Katya, who promises to negotiate with the prince to save him. While Katya desperately screams for Hermes, he reflects silently, wondering how he could earn his father's love and God's favor. Abandoned and suffering, his heart cries out for recognition, even though he doesn't understand what he did to deserve so much contempt. Hermes wakes up in a strange, dirty, and deteriorated place, surrounded by people in misery. Confused, he wonders where he is and feels the suspicious gaze of everyone around, increasing his sense of fear and loneliness. Hermes is approached by a group of men with suspicious smiles who ask if he is alone. Realizing the danger, he panics and tries to flee, overwhelmed by fear. Desperate, he thinks of Katya and wishes someone would save him as he feels the terror of being completely defenseless. Hermes tries to escape but is grabbed by the men, who mock him for walking alone as a noble. One of them says that now he will stay with them, while another holds him by force. Hermes struggles desperately, begging to be released, but is surrounded and at a clear disadvantage. The aggressors discuss among themselves what to do with Hermes. whether they should sell him or enslave him. They conclude that, being weak and worthless, even a ransom isn't worth it. Consumed by hatred for the nobility, they decide to beat him brutally, saying it's best to kill him. Hermes, on the floor and injured, faces the horror of human cruelty without being able to react. Hermes, hurt and desperate, wonders if all his effort and suffering were in vain. As one of the aggressors approaches with a knife and a cruel smile, he feels that his life may end there, even though he had dedicated himself so much in the hope of being recognized. Amidst the desperation, Hermes thinks, "I don't want it to end like this." At the moment Hermes is about to be attacked with a knife, a lightning strike hits the aggressors, interrupting the violence. A powerful woman appears in the background, walking firmly and ordering them to stop. Hermes, injured on the ground, watches in surprise as the thugs, frightened, look at her. The woman observes the scene with contempt. She says she was in a good mood when she returned home, but now finds a group of adults beating a child. Indignant, she calls the situation disgusting and says they ruined her day. Hermes watches her, surprised and confused by her imposing presence. With a sharp and confident gaze, the woman says she will have fun beating those cowards. The thugs react with anger and disbelief, shouting at her to get out of the way and activating their magic circles. But she remains firm, facing them head-on without fear. With a single movement, the woman defeats all the aggressors with crushing force. They are thrown far away while she remains calm and elegant at the center of the destruction. Hermes watches in shock as she, smiling sarcastically, comments on how scary it all was. Hermes watches in shock as the woman casts multiple powerful spells at once: fire, ice, and wind. He wonders how this is possible since normally a person can only use one type of lineage magic. The power of the spell destroys everything around, and he realizes that, even though it's ordinary magic, her power is absurd. Hermes watches in shock as everyone around recognizes the woman's overwhelming strength. With an intimidating presence and absurd magical power, she is called the Walking Catastrophe. Her name is Rose, the feared witch of the skies. Rose, irritated by the underestimation, mocks the men, saying it took them too long to realize who she really is. She scolds them for judging someone who uses ordinary magic as weak and prepares to show them her true power, promising a demonstration as a gift. Rose begins chanting a powerful spell, invoking a giant magic circle behind her. With solemn and firm words, she announces that she will show the magic worthy of her position, using a power that surpasses the boundaries between heaven and earth. The atmosphere charges with energy while the enemies watch in fear. Rose activates her powerful lineage magic called Hlidskjalf, releasing an intense light that dominates the area. The enemies around her are struck head-on, frozen in place with no chance to react. The power she manifests makes it clear that she is on a level far beyond the others. Asserting her position as an elite mage, Rose looks at the fallen thugs and makes it clear that she hasn't killed them. She merely neutralized them. With contempt, she says they're not worth the effort to dirty her hands. She then approaches Hermes and assures him that he's safe now. The boy, surprised and relieved, gazes at the woman who just saved him with such ease and power. Hermes shouts to warn Rose about an attack coming from behind, a long-range magical shot. She immediately turns, recognizes the threat, and with a single movement, destroys the building where the attack came from. Coldly, she comments that there really was a shooter and admits that the enemies were better prepared than she had imagined. Rose praises Hermes for noticing the magic from so far away, saying that he's amazing and that she's never seen anyone more talented than herself. Hermes, surprised, can hardly respond. Rose then introduces herself and says that he caught her attention. His name is revealed: Hermes von Frenbried, a boy who had hit rock bottom at the age of 7, but who, in that moment, found a chance to change his life. Rose introduces herself as the witch and shows interest in Hermes, recognizing his potential. This encounter marks the beginning of a turn in the boy's life. Hermes thanks her for saving him. Rose, relaxed, says she only hit those guys because she was angry. Then, she notices something strange. Despite seeming weak, Hermes managed to detect a long-range attack, which indicates a hidden talent. Hermes begins to cry, remembering everything he heard from his father. He tries to explain that he wanted to be a mage like Rose, but breaks down, saying he has no power. Rose is startled, thinking he's hurt, but realizes it's something deeper. Hermes vents, saying it's useless to try, that no matter how hard he tries, he'll never be recognized. Rose, sensing his pain, calmly approaches and says she can hear his story. He tells her that he was abandoned by his family and that his only friend was taken away. Rose listens in silence and understands all the loneliness he's faced. Rose hugs Hermes tightly, saying that she knows how much it hurts. She criticizes the arrogant nobles who think they're superior, even though they depend on others' power. With a serious look, she affirms that nothing changes in this world. But then she reassures Hermes, saying that it doesn't matter if he doesn't have lineage magic. He shouldn't believe what others say. Hermes confirms that he doesn't have lineage magic, which surprises Rose. Then she becomes excited and praises his skills in magic manipulation and detection, calling him incredible. She says he's like a raw diamond and promises not to let him waste his talent. Rose gets excited about Hermes, finding him adorable, and even says she wants to take him home. Hermes feels confused and embarrassed by the compliments. Realizing she's gone too far, Rose tries to compose herself, and then, more calmly, addresses him more seriously, calling his name. Rose asks Hermes if he really likes magic. He answers affirmatively, firmly, but soon admits that since he doesn't have hereditary magic, he cannot become the type of mage he always dreamed of. Even so, he says with a sincere smile that he loves magic. Rose holds Hermes firmly and says it's time to correct that misunderstanding. She acknowledges that lineage magic is powerful and that it cannot be obtained through effort, but makes it clear that it's not all that matters. While flying through the skies, Rose says that lineage magic is just that, a given talent, without any guarantee of real strength. She criticizes those who become complacent with this gift, asserting that many settle for just having it without truly working hard. Hermes listens, surprised. Rose explains that magic isn't a divine miracle, but something created by human logic. Although lineage magic is powerful, she affirms that anyone who dedicates themselves can create their own magic. Hermes feels his world turn upside down with this revelation. As they fly beneath the moonlight, Rose reveals that being born with lineage magic, limited to a single type, can be almost like a curse. Rose explains that Hermes, for not having lineage magic, wasn't actually cursed. He is free to create any kind of magic, blessed with unlimited possibilities. Rose says that Hermes is a mage with the greatest freedom in the world, with the potential to create more incredible magics than even hers. She affirms that she has been looking for someone like him. Hermes, moved, begins to believe in himself. With the full moon in the background, Rose extends her hand to Hermes and firmly asks if he wants to become her disciple. This decision marks a new beginning for the boy. Hermes admits that, thinking about it logically, Rose's proposal seemed very suspicious. But hearing how much she spoke about magic with passion, he begins to believe that she loves magic as much as he does. Hermes is moved by Rose's words. For him, nothing was more convincing than feeling that she truly believed in his potential. He accepts the invitation and says he's excited to work with her. 5 years pass since the meeting between Hermes and Rose. Now older, he is seen running through the city streets with determination. Since that day, the girl has dedicated herself intensely to her studies and duties as a noble. Still, she carried guilt in her heart and tried to make up for it with effort and discipline, never forgetting what had happened. The ruler refuses to listen to any argument and shows arrogance, saying that everything in the country is decided based on hereditary magic. As he possesses the strongest power, he declares himself to be the law. When confronted by someone concerned with the future of the nation, he ignores them, tells them to blame their weak magic, and ends the conversation with contempt. Katya is found by a group of soldiers led by a man named Chris. He formally addresses her as Lady Katya von Traakia and orders her to stop resisting. Katya appears surprised to see him, but maintains a firm expression. Chris accuses Katya of conspiring against the state, but she responds firmly, saying there is no evidence against her and that he is abusing his authority by trying to imprison the daughter of a duke without a formal accusation. She demands explanations and makes it clear she won't accept this passively. Chris admits that he has no formal accusation against Katya, but reveals that he is acting under orders from the second prince, Astor. He says that whatever the prince decides is considered just, including determining her guilt. However, Katya realizes that he is bluffing. Katya knows that being imprisoned now would be the same as admitting guilt. Even though she thinks Chris is bluffing, she understands that in the world of nobility, even a bluff can become truth if spread as a rumor. These 5 years have taught her that appearance matters more than truth. Katya decides that she cannot give in and prepares her magic to face Chris. He mocks her resistance, saying it's typical of criminals to try to escape, and threatens to use her father's power to force her imprisonment. But she remains firm, ordering him to retreat. Katya explodes in fury, scolding Chris for his rudeness and his father's arrogance. Determined, she declares that even amid destruction, she still prays for peace. As she channels her magic, she affirms she will save a world she can't even see, though dawn has yet to arrive. Katya activates her powerful lineage magic, Soteria Trivia, surrounded by a whirlwind of intense magical energy. The enemy watches in shock as he realizes she also possesses lineage magic, something he clearly did not expect. The enemy counterattacks with his own lineage magic, Misteltina, releasing a devastating wave of energy that explodes with force in the field, causing massive destruction around. The enemy's attack is more intense than Rose expected. She tries to counterattack but realizes that her magic is not flowing properly. Even though she is not in top form, she forces herself to continue, determined to face this threat despite the risk it presents. The enemy mocks Rose's attack, suffering almost no damage, and prepares his final magic. He claims he has permission from the king to cause destruction and activates his spell arrogantly, saying it's time for her to sleep. Rose is on the ground, weakened but still conscious. While Rose lies on the ground, weakened, she remembers when Hermes, still a child, sincerely praised her magic, something no one else ever did. His words comforted her many times. Still, she laments not being able to protect him in the past. The memories of their childhood together, surrounded by discrimination, ignite something inside her. Rose thinks it's foolish to still be emotional about the past, since nothing can be changed. Still, in the face of defeat, she only wishes for one thing: for Hermes, the boy who once held her hand with hope to be able to save her. Hermes appears at the last moment and protects Rose with a powerful magical barrier, repelling the attack that was about to hit her. He appears determined, as if he had been waiting for this moment to repay everything she did for him in the past. Hermes appears next to Rose and realizes the tense situation. With a calm smile, he comments that he doesn't fully understand what's happening, but notices that she is in trouble. Rose is surprised to hear him and, turning around, immediately recognizes him. Hermes, now more confident and mature, respectfully calls her Kadi-sama, marking his return after years of absence. Katya recognizes Hermes the moment she sees him, surprised and shaken. Memories of when they were children come to the surface. Moments under the tree, shared smiles, and the support he gave her in the past. Touched by the memory and his presence, she whispers his name with emotion. Hermes confidently introduces himself to Katya, saying that, as promised, he has become an incredible mage and has returned to her. His gaze is firm and calm, making it clear that he has finally fulfilled the promise made in childhood. The boy returns to the royal capital, the same place he was expelled from in the past. Upon arrival, he encounters key figures from his past, including a woman named Katya and his brother. He faces them calmly and says that it's been a long time since they last met. The scene flashes back to the past, when the girl met her master. Meanwhile, intense and hostile memories echo in her mind. Orders to kill and disdain surrounded her. This meeting changed everything in her life. The boy suddenly wakes up, still confused, and opens the curtains in fear. Looking around the unfamiliar room, he tries to understand where he is. Surprised by the elegant surroundings, he sits on the bed, not recognizing the place. Hermes is completely stunned when he sees the woman lying beside him, smiling peacefully as she greets him, "Good morning." The memory of what happened the previous night suddenly hits him, leaving him utterly embarrassed and confused by the situation. Hermes tries to understand why he woke up in the same bed as the woman. She explains that he was exhausted and fell asleep on the way, so she took him to her home. Not wanting to wake him forcibly, she decided to let him rest by her side. He remembers that he is now her apprentice. Embarrassed, Hermes thanks her and apologizes upon learning that she changed his clothes and cleaned his body. The woman, smiling, reassures him, saying that, in fact, she should be the one to thank him. She admits she misses the warmth of human contact and was happy to have him sleep by her side, enjoying the feeling of closeness. The woman suggests that Hermes rest more, or if he prefers, continue sleeping with her. He declines, still shy, and she then proposes to show him the house before breakfast. Extending her hand to him, Hermes hesitates for a moment but accepts. Together, they leave the room, marking the beginning of their new cohabitation. As she shows him around the house, the woman explains that Hermes can move freely, except in the laboratory. She warns him not to act recklessly until he gets accustomed to the place. Hermes observes everything in silence, feeling like he's in a dream. The environment is calm, welcoming, and completely different from the harsh reality he once knew. Hermes wonders if he deserves all of this, as the woman announces that since he will be living there, he needs a room of his own. Even though he is surprised and hesitant, she insists happily, saying that she lives alone and has plenty of space. With that, she hands him a room, telling him to use it freely. Hermes is surprised to see that the room he received is completely messy, resembling an old storage space. The woman is also confused, saying that she hasn't organized the place in about 10 years. Even so, Hermes humbly accepts, stating that he is already grateful to have a space, while she, embarrassed, changes the subject by suggesting breakfast. Hermes comes across some burnt food and questions what's going on. The woman, frustrated, admits that she hasn't cooked in 10 years and usually eats ready-made food. Even so, Hermes tries to be polite and says it's fine, as any hot meal is better than what he used to eat. Internally, he thinks that she really isn't good at domestic tasks, despite her efforts. Even in front of the strange food, Hermes tries to appear grateful and, shortly after, makes a sincere request. He wants to learn magic. The woman is surprised and excited, immediately agreeing with a smile. She then takes him to a room filled with books, where his learning will begin. Hermes is impressed with the room full of magic books, but the woman apologizes, thinking she hasn't earned his trust yet. She explains that she tried to take care of him and cook for him to change that impression, but she feels that she has failed in everything. Hermes, surprised, realizes that she was truly trying for him. Hermes explains that he became suspicious of being taken by a stranger to an unknown place, which was natural. The woman understands and even feels relieved that he is cautious. Then, with sincerity, she takes his hands and says that he is like a miracle to her, something too precious not to be valued. The woman firmly states that she will never betray Hermes, as long as he is sincere about his desire to learn magic. Even if he fails, she promises not to give up on him. Touched by her words, Hermes admits that he was afraid, but hearing that she will guide him as long as he wants to go forward, he starts to open up. Hermes remembers the painful past when his magic was discovered and his life turned into a nightmare. He was called an abomination and rejected. That trauma made him fear being abandoned again. With contained tears, he apologizes for having doubted her. He thanks her sincerely, saying that without her, he would have already died. But now, he has regained hope in magic. Hermes smiles sincerely and asks her to take care of him from now on, calling her master with pride. Touched by his words, she gets emotional and hugs him tightly, saying that he is the best disciple she could ever have. The joy between them marks the official beginning of the master-apprentice bond. While Hermes studies, his master reveals that all the magic training has one final objective: to make him master the most powerful magic she has ever created. According to her, this technique is her greatest masterpiece, and Hermes is the only one capable of mastering it completely, even if it takes a long time to achieve. Before a large magical circle, the master declares that the days ahead will be intense. With that, the training period between Hermes and his master begins, and soon time passes quickly, marking the start of a new phase in their lives. Hermes says goodbye to his master, stating firmly that he will return to the royal capital. He wants to honor everything he has learned, recover what he lost in the past, and move forward without regrets. His master watches him silently, touched by his determination. Hermes says he needs to explore different types of magic in the capital to discover his own. With a determined smile, he reveals his true goal. When she realizes that Hermes is indeed leaving, his master becomes desperate and starts crying, saying she can't bear the idea of being apart. She clings to him, admitting that she doesn't know how to cook, clean, or do anything on her own, and that she can no longer live without his presence. Hermes watches all this with a slight smile, already imagining the chaos she will face without him. Hermes, now more mature, asks his master to stop with the hugs, saying that he's 15 now and it's time to move on. She accepts sadly, acknowledging that it's the moment for her disciple to depart. Even so, with affection, she says that everything she taught him was just the seed, and now it's up to him to choose which magic he will make bloom in the world. The master speaks seriously about the royal capital, saying that it's a cruel place, full of lazy and ill-intentioned people, where many accept everything without thinking for themselves. She warns that Hermes will see things he won't want to see. Even so, when asking if he still wishes to go, she already knows the answer. Hermes, firm, is determined to follow his path. Hermes firmly states that he is going to leave. He says he has no complaints about living with his master, but now he has something important to do in the capital. He wants to reach higher places, to be at her level, and he can't stay there forever. Even if it were a lie, he wanted her to trust his decision without looking away. Hermes reinforces his decision to leave, saying he can achieve great results. Jokingly, he says that he will only come back if he's hungry, lonely, or near death. His master, now with a confident smile, encourages him enthusiastically. She tells him to go to the capital, show his strength, and prove to everyone who despised him that he has become someone powerful. With a determined smile, Hermes sets off toward his new destination. Behind him, his master waves excitedly in the open field, shouting with her heart full of pride and affection, "I love you, my disciple." While watching the sky, the master firmly and emotionally declares that Hermes must recover all his desires. Hermes returns to the capital and meets an important person from his past. Now stronger and more confident, he feels that he can finally repay the favor he received back then. The moment marks a new reunion and the beginning of something long overdue. With a firm and determined look, Hermes declares that this time it will be him who protects that person. Now stronger, he promises to use his own magic to save her, marking the beginning of his true mission. Hermes reunites with Katya after a long time. She recognizes him with surprise, while he approaches calmly, saying he decided to intervene because he saw she was in trouble. Even without understanding the full situation, he makes it clear that he couldn't ignore her. Hermes identifies himself in front of a group led by his brother, who looks at him with disdain. Surprised to see him alive, his brother recalls that Hermes was expelled from the family 5 years ago. Without hiding his discomfort, he calls him rejected and orders him to hand over the girl by his side, treating the situation with arrogance and superiority. Hermes' brother confronts him angrily, saying that he has no right to interfere because he is just a commoner without magical lineage. Hermes, calm, asks the reason for the accusation against the girl, who quickly defends herself, stating that she didn't tarnish the Duke's honor. Even so, the brother insists that Hermes shouldn't get involved, reminding him that he is no longer part of the nobility. Hermes reminds Katya of the time she comforted him when he was imprisoned, saying that his spirit would have broken without her presence. Now he wants to repay that kindness. With a sharp look, he states that there are many ways to help her, including eliminating the noble who is causing trouble, leaving his brother visibly irritated. Katya is moved by Hermes' words, saying that he's being unfair by showing up at that moment and saying things that make her want to depend on him. Hermes smiles, while the brother, filled with rage, activates a powerful magic and accuses him of arrogance, furious that Hermes suggested getting rid of him. Hermes' brother activates a powerful magical technique, formed by sacred symbols and ancient titles. Hermes recognizes the spell immediately. It's one he has seen many times in the past. With a confident smile, he says that he's happy this is the first spell he's witnessing since returning to the capital. Hermes decides to show his own magic. While starting the invocation, complex symbols and magical energy envelop him. He recites a spell with powerful words about truth, creation, and miracles, surprising everyone around him. Katya watches in awe, realizing that Hermes is using something completely out of the ordinary. Hermes firmly declares that his magic does not come from noble lineage or divine blessings. He reveals that his power is the direct result of his master's teachings and the personal effort he devoted to his own growth. It is the living proof of how much he has evolved through his own merit. Hermes reveals his creation magic, Stele of the Origin. A powerful magical structure rises before him, radiant and complex, symbolizing the peak of what he has built through his own effort. It is the materialization of what he has achieved without relying on inheritance or divine blessings. Consumed by rage and denial, Hermes' brother screams that it's impossible he acquired superior magic, calling his creation third-rate magic. Hermes, firm, confronts him impatiently. The noble tries to justify himself, saying his only mission was to capture Katya, but he is clearly shaken to see that the brother he once despised has now exceeded all expectations. During the confrontation, the enemy shouts that no one will care about a commoner caught in the middle of the mess. Hermes, unshaken, continues activating his spell firmly. Katya watches in silence, recognizing his power. She reveals that Stele of the Origin is a magic created to analyze and reconstruct any other type of magic, the foundation of magical creation. Katya explains that all magic follows fixed laws, and that it is only possible to recreate them based on their original structure. However, she is limited by her hereditary magic, which prevents her from surpassing that level. Hermes, on the other hand, carries no such restriction. Since he hasn't inherited any magical lineage, he has the theoretical potential to recreate any kind of spell, something impossible for any other common mage. While his opponent faces the impossible, Hermes remains calm, reflecting on the complexity of what he has just achieved. Lineage magic, something that should not have been possible to copy, was recreated before everyone. This was only possible thanks to the knowledge he had accumulated and the rigorous training he had endured since childhood. The feat was not just theory. He applied magical recreation with perfection in a real battle. Overcome with frustration, Hermes' brother screams in desperation, unable to accept that he has been surpassed. To him, Hermes was someone who should have been forgotten, erased from history. But Hermes, firm and silent, is already preparing his magic with precision, determined to respond not with words, but with power. Hermes releases his magic with precision, and the energy hits Chris head-on. The impact throws him violently, leaving the surrounding knights in shock, shouting his name, unable to prevent his fall. After Chris's fall, his allies panic and rush to help him. Hermes and Katya seize the moment of confusion and prepare to flee. Enraged and humiliated, Chris orders the soldiers to kill Hermes, shouting uncontrollably as an imminent chase begins through the city. Hermes and Katya manage to escape and reunite safely in a distant alley. As he recovers from the run, he is surprised by her mature appearance after 5 years. Katya, emotional and angry, bursts into questions and accusations, revealing how much she has searched for him all this time. Katya collapses in front of Hermes, asking why he never trusted her all this time. She reveals the pain she felt, the fear of losing him, and how much she regrets not being able to help. Hermes listens silently, feeling the weight of her words, and with a sincere look, simply apologizes. Emotional, Katya begins to cry in his arms. Katya, with tear-filled eyes, thanks Hermes for surviving. She forgives him and smiles with relief upon seeing him in front of her. Hermes, with a loving gesture, touches his forehead to hers and apologizes for not being able to do anything in the past. In silence, they share the weight of the memories and the relief of their reunion. Katya begins asking several questions about Hermes' life over the past 5 years, wanting to know where he lives, how he lives, and what he plans to do next. Hermes tries to answer but doesn't have clear answers, which surprises her. With a shy smile, he admits that he has some ideas but hasn't decided anything yet. Katya, excited, invites Hermes to live in her house and says she will hire him. Hermes is completely surprised by the sudden proposal, not knowing how to react immediately. A subordinate kneels before the royalty, begging for forgiveness after failing to capture Katya. The prince, irritated, reprimands him coldly, reminding him that he had been given enough troops and still lost to an unknown mage. The prince, ashamed of his defeat, decides to lie in the report to avoid admitting he lost to an exiled person. Meanwhile, he declares that Katya represents a growing threat to the country and orders that the mage who helped her be investigated and that she no longer be allowed to roam free. The prince watches coldly the humiliated subordinate, showing disdain. To him, those who don't know their place must be subjugated, as has happened with so many others before. Without showing mercy, he discards him as just another nuisance. After leaving his master's house, the boy returns to the capital and finds Katya, his childhood friend, being unjustly accused. He managed to use his lineage magic through the Esteli of the origin and saved her. Even surprised by her proposal, he decided to accompany her to the Tarkak's family residence. The protagonist arrives at the mansion with Katya, impressed by the size of the place, even though he had been there before. One of the servants runs excitedly upon seeing her, relieved by her return, and worried that she took so long to come back. Layla worries when she sees Katya hurt and with dirty clothes, but Katya reassures her. Then, Layla recognizes Hermes as the boy who used to play with Katya in childhood and comments on his fame of being expelled for having no talent. Despite that, she shows relief at seeing him safe and well. Katya warmly welcomes Hermes to the Trachea family residence and assures him that her servants won't treat him with disdain like those from the Fenriel house. Hermes smiles in relief, and soon they are taken to Lord Jurgen, where Katya formally introduces him. Lord Jurgen thanks Hermes for protecting Katya and expresses surprise upon seeing him grown. Upon learning that Katya wants to hire him as a guard, he asks Hermes to show his magic again, since his daughter was impressed with his skills in the past. Hermes accepts the request, preparing to demonstrate. Hermes presents his magic, surprising Lord Jurgen, who admits to never having seen anything like it. When asked about the origin of the technique, Hermes avoids revealing the truth, saying he was taught by a certain person. Noticing the possible exposure, Hermes' master, who watches discreetly, asks him not to speak any further about her. Hermes then refuses to give more details, keeping his mentor's identity a secret. Even when directly pressured by Duke Trachea as head of the noble house, Hermes refuses to reveal any information about his master. He makes it clear that his decision is not out of fear or due to the imposition of someone superior, but out of pure loyalty and respect. Hermes states that he cannot betray the teachings and trust of the one who trained him, showing firmness in his choice to protect his mentor's identity. The Duke tries to understand how Hermes' magic works, questioning whether he can copy lineage magics. Hermes explains that, technically, it's not a copy but a complete recreation based on observation and theory. When pressed about possible limitations, such as the number of uses or replacement of spells, Hermes says there are none. He can use the recreated magic as many times as he wants and still maintain all previous ones, without restrictions. The Duke is shocked by the unlimited potential of Hermes' magic, which can recreate any magic without restrictions and use it indefinitely. He recognizes that this could shake the entire structure of noble society. He then questions Hermes about his goals and why, now so powerful, he has returned to the royal capital. He also raises suspicions about the reasons that led Hermes to save Katya, saying that, without understanding this, he cannot fully accept him. Faced with the Duke's suspicions, who doubts Hermes' intentions and speculates that he might be trying to get close to the nobility again with ulterior motives, Hermes decides to be direct. He acknowledges that it's natural to generate distrust, but asserts without hesitation that his true goal is not status or influence. He is seeking a magic he can call his own. Hermes faces the Duke firmly and reveals his true ambition. He is not seeking prestige or reconciliation with the nobility. His only desire is to create his own magic, something that is entirely his, born from effort and learning and not inherited from anyone. Hermes reveals that his true dream has always been to deeply understand the creation of magic, to one day develop one that would be only his. Inspired by his master, he wants to shape something even more beautiful than hereditary magic, a proof of his own existence and effort. Hermes reveals that he helped Katya because even when at a disadvantage, she thought of others before herself. Seeing that she continued to be the same kind girl who supported him in the past, he felt he needed to repay that kindness. The Duke comments that Hermes' reason was naive, judging by a momentary impression, but admits that, as a father, he is happy to see someone trust so much in his daughter. Finally, he says that he feels relieved knowing that it is Hermes who will be protecting Katya. Katya becomes completely embarrassed when she hears her father's comment and quickly rushes to make it clear that Hermes is not thinking of her that way. However, inside, she celebrates the fact that now Hermes will always be by her side as a guard, even though she tries to hide her feelings. Hermes notices that everything turned out better than expected and thanks Katya for the warm reception. Even though he was prepared to sleep outside, he received a comfortable room. As he reflects, he realizes that Lord Jurgen must protest against his brother's involvement in the incident, as the order came from Prince Aster. For now, the enemies will be contained. Hermes realizes he needs to take his role as Katya's guard seriously since he doesn't know what kind of danger may arise. Katya appears on the balcony and calls him to talk, saying that a lot has happened, and they didn't have time to speak properly. Hermes praises Katya by saying he was thinking about how she became so beautiful. She is surprised and embarrassed, complaining that he is more direct than he used to be. Hermes is confused by the reaction, while Katya remembers when he used to praise her in the past, but in a more timid way. Hermes tries to maintain distance, addressing Katya formally because of their social positions now, but she insists that he call her as he used to. She argues that, since he is her attendant, he should obey his employer. Hermes gives in, still a bit confused, and calls her Kati, making Katya embarrassed but satisfied. As they converse under the night, Katya asks about Hermes' master. He says he cannot talk much because of his master's social position, but that he was considered a failure. Despite this, Hermes confidently states that his master is the most amazing person in the world when it comes to magic and will forever be his number one in that aspect. Hermes asks how Katya's last 5 years have been. She responds that a lot has happened, mainly involving her engagement to Prince Aster. Hermes is surprised to confirm that she really is engaged to the prince. And Katya mentions that if she had a fiancé, not even he as a childhood friend and servant, could be there with her at that hour of the night. Katya reveals that her engagement to Prince Aster was broken off the previous month. She says that now she is just the daughter of a discarded noble, showing a serene smile despite the situation. Hermes puts on formal clothes and is complimented by Layla, who says he looks great and that Katya will surely like it. As he descends the stairs, Hermes notices that there are few servants in the residence, especially near Katya. Layla then asks to speak with him privately on his first day as a guard. Hermes asks if Katya has trustworthy friends in the capital, but Layla reveals that there is no one like that. Katya can't open up to anyone because, as the daughter of a duke, many approach her only out of interest. Layla then makes a direct request that Hermes become Katya's emotional support, someone who understands her feelings and never abandons her. Hermes thinks about the 5 years he spent away from the capital and reflects that, during that time, Katya went through tough experiences as the daughter of a duke, including the breakup of her engagement. He concludes that now, more than ever, supporting Katya is something he must do. As he prepares to leave, he is surprised by her calling him excitedly. Hermes appears in formal attire and apologizes for the delay. When Katya sees him, she is so embarrassed and surprised by his appearance that she covers her face and asks him not to come closer for a while. The other girls try to cheer her up, saying she is just impressed, while Hermes, confused, wonders if he really looked that good in the clothes. Hermes, now dressed in his new uniform, formally introduces himself to Katya and sincerely expresses that it will be a pleasure to take care of her. As a childhood friend and attendant, he reaffirms his commitment to be by her side and offer his support from now on. Katya remembers her mother leaving when she was still little. Desperate, she runs after her, pleading for her not to leave. In her memory, her mother smiles warmly, and before leaving, asks Katya to never forget her. Before leaving, Katya's mother leaves impactful words. She says that magic should not be used to dominate, but to protect the weaker. To be happy, one must protect the happiness of others. Katya, emotional, runs after her while hearing her last request, to become a noble worthy of respect. Katya watches in despair as a devastating attack hits the city while shouting for her mother. The flames and destruction around her paralyze her, and fear takes over. Crying, she stretches her hand out and begs for it not to happen, overwhelmed by helplessness and pain in the face of the tragedy. Katya wakes up silently and thoughtfully, still marked by the memories of the past. She looks at a family portrait and greets her mother with a good morning, expressing longing and affection. A few days later, Hermes officially becomes her guard, marking the beginning of a new phase by her side. During a meeting, a soldier informs about a dungeon discovered in the Hawaii Mountains, near the territory of another count. Monsters attacked a village, but there were no deaths. In the face of the threat, the Duke plans to evacuate the civilians and handle the danger, but his soldiers are busy. Determined, Katya offers to go personally to handle the situation. Katya firmly defends her decision to go to the site of the attack. She says that, as a noble with lineage magic, she has the duty to protect the people. Even with the Duke's initial hesitation, he recognizes her commitment and approves her decision, reminding her that she has always fought for others and promised her mother to become a noble worthy of respect. Hermes accepts the mission to protect Katya once more. The Duke, trusting him, orders that he bring soldiers and return immediately if the situation becomes dangerous. Meanwhile, Hermes remembers that Katya's mother, a kind and courageous woman, died protecting the city from a horde of monsters when they were both 6 years old. Katya still holds this memory close with affection. During the walk with the soldiers, Katya asks Hermes if he has ever fought against monsters. He answers that he has, during his training period. Katya explains the severity of the situation. Monsters are a growing threat, multiplying quickly, and if left unchecked, they become dangerous enough to threaten humanity. She asserts that they are currently the greatest threat to the people of the nation. Katya explains that certain strange structures with complex interiors serve as monster dens. These are called dungeons and end up becoming bases for the monsters. When hordes grow in these places, they can turn into real disasters for the kingdom. One of the knights protests furiously against Katya for hiring Hermes, saying that he is just a boy and should not be responsible for such a dangerous mission. He emphasizes the risks of exploring a dungeon and the burden it entails. Katya, firm, replies that she chose Hermes for his skills, making it clear that her decision was based on merit, not personal ties. Katya and Hermes are approached by an arrogant man named Count Eldridge, who provokes her by calling her a flawed young lady. Tension rises with the arrival of the Count, clearly hostile, who shows disdain and questions her presence at the location. Hermes recognizes the name, recalling that his territory borders Katya's. Count Eldridge tries to assert his authority, saying that he will conquer the dungeon immediately and orders Katya to leave. He provokes her again, saying she should be moved by him taking on her burden. Katya reminds him that the area is under her duchy's jurisdiction, and Hermes observes the situation in silence, clearly irritated by the Count's arrogance. Count Eldridge loses control and begins attacking Katya with insults. He accuses her of trying to steal the credit for the dungeon and calls her useless, saying she was rejected by the prince and can't even use magic. Hermes looks visibly uncomfortable, while Katya listens to everything with a serious but shaken expression. When Eldridge escalates and tries to present himself as the chosen one by God, a monster appears and attacks him by surprise. Hermes, without hesitation, defeats the creature quickly in front of everyone. With a calm expression, he apologizes ironically, saying that he only acted because he thought Eldridge was in danger. Hermes mocks Eldridge with a calm and polite tone, asking what the consequence would be if they ignored such a surprise attack. He exposes Eldridge's arrogance and incompetence in front of everyone, highlighting that he didn't even notice the monster's approach. This deeply angers the Count, who explodes in fury for having been humiliated by someone he considered a mere servant. Hermes responds with irony and lightness, saying that he just wanted to help, even though he is just a boy without training. He provokes Eldridge by suggesting that the Count should be grateful and crying with emotion. Irritated and humiliated, Eldridge threatens to take revenge, shouting at his soldiers and saying he will never forget Hermes' face. Meanwhile, the others watch the scene, surprised by the way Hermes handled the situation. Hermes apologizes for getting carried away, but the guard, visibly moved, admits that he was wrong about him. He regrets judging him only by appearance and praises his courage for facing even a count to defend his master. Katya watches the reconciliation with relief, and the other soldiers cheer up to continue with the mission, now more united. Hermes quickly eliminates several monsters with his precise magic, showing full control of the situation. Katya, watching his skills, smiles confidently and praises him for his efficiency, showing that now she fully trusts him as her guardian. Hermes explains that he is using a general magic enhanced with effects from Istele of the Origin, allowing him to cast spells without incantations. Though it doesn't have the raw power of lineage magic, the convenience and efficiency impress everyone. The soldiers praise the progress inside the dungeon, attributing the success to Hermes' support. Katya and the guards move forward confidently, until something sudden catches their attention. The group encounters an immense and threatening creature, radiating a strong magical presence. Hermes realizes that this intense energy can only mean one thing. It is the dungeon's boss. The mood changes immediately as everyone prepares for the decisive confrontation. Hermes recognizes the monster as a dragon turtle, also called the Black Tortoise, revealing that, despite its appearance, it is a full dragon. He comments that he has faced creatures of this type before during his training. Concerned about Count Eldridge's situation, Hermes suggests temporarily retreating to gather more forces and plan the next steps with the support of the Justice Minister. The roar of the dragon turtle echoes powerfully, interrupting any plans to retreat. Hermes and Katya are caught off guard by the creature's sudden hostility, becoming alert to the imminent danger. The dragon turtle charges with force against the ground, causing the structure to shake violently. Hermes protects Katya as the path begins to collapse beneath their feet. The soldiers try to move away, but the situation becomes critical as mass destruction spreads rapidly. The group survives thanks to a protective barrier conjured in time. Hermes confirms that Katya is fine, but notes with seriousness that the escape route has been destroyed. Now isolated, they will have to face the dungeon's boss without the possibility of retreat. The tortoise dragon roars with fury and violently charges against the group's barrier, sending debris flying in all directions. Hermes positions himself in front of Katya and the soldiers, ready to face the creature head-on. The chapter ends with maximum tension, marking the beginning of a decisive battle. The tortoise dragon advances with surprising speed for its size, launching an enormous paw at the knights. One of the soldiers is thrown, and the captain only manages to block the blow in time. Even on guard, he feels the creature's heavy impact and realizes that this fight will be tougher than he expected. Hermes channels his magic with precision and releases multiple direct shots at the tortoise dragon. The explosions accumulate quickly on the creature's body, creating visible cracks in its shell. Seeing that the normal attacks are not having an effect, Hermes asks Katya to use her lineage magic. Without hesitation, she prepares to cast a powerful spell. As the dragon retreats for a moment, Katya raises her hand and releases Sotria Trivia, an ancient magic. The energy begins to concentrate around her, demonstrating that they are finally going to strike with full force. The tortoise dragon advances with surprising speed, dodging Katya's attack. She is impressed by the creature's agility. Before she can act again, Hermes positions himself beside her, extending his hand firmly and telling her that he will help, ready to act together. Hermes casts his magic with precision and activates the spell, Blood Chain, binding the tortoise dragon in magical chains before it could strike them. The creature is immobilized in the air, unable to advance. Katya watches in surprise, feeling the strength and synchronicity between them in the combat. Even though it is bound by Hermes' chains, the tortoise dragon releases a blast of raw force, breaking part of the bindings. The soldiers watch in shock, while Katya and Hermes realize that the creature still has plenty of power. Katya gets frustrated, realizing they underestimated the enemy. Hermes watches the dragon activate a powerful barrier magic, easily blocking the previous attack. The creature exhales an aura of magical power comparable to lineage magic, and Hermes recognizes that sensation. It was identical to a dangerous moment from his past. Now he realizes that the enemy is even more formidable than they imagined. Hermes remembers the battle against a fierce dragon he faced a year ago. The scene revives in his mind. The imminent danger, the devastating attacks, and the tension of fighting for his life. The magical energy of the current enemy is identical to that from that fight, awakening in him the same sense of urgency and alertness. Hermes recalls that, just like the red dragon he faced with his master, this new enemy is also immune to conventional magic. During a previous dungeon exploration, he discovered that the only way to defeat such creatures was with a different approach. Determined, he begins to devise a strategy, knowing that victory will require more than magical power. While the knights try to protect Katya, one of them shouts at her to flee with Hermes and seek reinforcements. But Katya firmly rejects the idea, refusing to abandon her comrades on the battlefield. Even in the face of danger, she insists that she cannot leave them behind, showing her determination and sense of responsibility. Katya hesitates, torn by the possibility of leaving her comrades behind. She realizes the sacrifice they are making for her, but the fear of losing them paralyzes her. Amidst the confusion and pain, she wonders what to do. In that moment, the memory of her mother appears before her, as if seeking strength in her words and example to make the right decision. Hermes holds Katya and urgently calls her. He reveals that there is only one attack capable of breaking through the dragon's barrier, but to use it, he will need time to charge and chant the spell. As the threat surrounds them, both realize that executing this technique will be a critical moment in the battle. Hermes faces the situation with seriousness and firmly asks, if they can keep the dragon still for just 5 seconds, he will be able to launch the decisive attack. This short time becomes the key point to turn the battle. Hermes begins to run, concentrating his magical energy while forming a magic circle with his hand. The dragon notices the movement and charges for an attack, but Hermes dodges with agility, maintaining focus while preparing the decisive spell. Hermes advances with surprising speed, dodging the dragon's attacks while strengthening his body with magic. The knights, impressed, comment on how he is not losing to a professional warrior, recognizing how effective his combination of agility and magic is on the battlefield. When the dragon tries to attack Hermes during his charge, one of the knights steps in the way and blocks the strike with his sword, shouting that he won't allow it. This creates a vital opening for Hermes to continue his approach without being hit. With the help of the knight who blocked the attack, the group managed to weaken the dragon, making it fall to its knees. Katya, seizing the opportunity, prepares her final move with confidence. While the creature roars in pain, Katya releases what remains of her magic to contain the dragon, but realizes that her power is almost at its limit. Even so, she remains firm and manages to suppress it for a brief moment, determined to give enough time for the final attack. Hermes praises Katya for having bought enough time. With the final magic fully charged, he activates a powerful fire spell, ready to pierce the dragon's defenses with a devastating blow. Hermes completes his magic with precision, recreating a devastating technique called alternate dragon breath. A sea of flames erupts against the enemy dragon, engulfing it completely and hitting dead on, with power comparable to the breath of a true dragon. Hermes' attack hits the dragon directly, which screams in pain as its body is consumed by the flames. The powerful fiery blast destroys its magical defense, and its body begins to be swallowed by the fire, unable to withstand the impact of the recreated magic. The group watches the fallen body of the dragon, still cautious. Hermes analyzes in silence, while one of the knights celebrates, believing they have won. Katya, surprised, recognizes that the magic Hermes used was something different, something that caught her attention in a special way. Hermes explains that he used magic copied from a dragon from another dungeon, recreated with the help of Isle of the Origin. This technique allows the replication of any magic, including those used by high-level monsters, even surpassing lineage magic. Katya, surprised and touched by Hermes' ability, sincerely praises him, saying that he has become an incredible mage. When he asks if she is injured, she denies, without explaining what she's really feeling. Katya, visibly shaken, vents that she feels useless because, even with her powerful lineage magic, known as one of the strongest and capable of defeating dragons, she couldn't contribute as she expected. She compares herself to Hermes and laments being seen as a defective young lady who can't use magic. Katya continues blaming herself for not being able to use all her power when it was most needed, saying that she put everyone in danger because of her weakness. She believes Hermes must be disappointed in her. Still, Hermes gently calls her by name, holding her hand, showing that he doesn't share that disappointment and still respects her. Hermes asks Katya if she has ever been disappointed in him in the past when he was considered useless and talentless. He remembers how people treated him and how it marked him, but firmly says that he is not disappointed in her. He repeats the same answer she gave him before, showing that he trusts her. Katya is surprised and moved, remembering when she thought he would never become a great mage, and now she sees that she was wrong. Hermes states that people who try as hard as Katya cannot help but become great mages. He recognizes that something is hindering her magic, and because of this, he makes a direct request. He wants to recreate her spell, Sotria Trivia, using his own magic. He demonstrates total confidence in her potential and wishes to help her understand what is limiting her powers. The boy explains to the girl about recreating a specific spell called Soteria Trivia. He demonstrates that to do so, he needs to deeply understand the original magic, using the Stele of the Origin. Observing him, the girl thinks about this weakness in lineage magic, as it is so complex that even the person born with it may not notice some details. The boy continues explaining that mages with lineage magic can use it without needing to understand its internal structure, just like humans move their bodies without understanding the anatomical details. Because of this, they usually don't perceive hidden effects or errors in their magic. Watching the girl, he believes that the reason she can't use her magic well may be related to this, promising to personally investigate the cause of her difficulties. A man named Count Eldridge arrives at the place where the two young ones are, noticing that the dungeon's boss has already been defeated, which would make his life much easier. Without caring for the others, he starts climbing the stairs, accompanied by his soldiers. The girl is surprised and tries to stop him, but the Count ignores her protests and moves ahead. Count Eldridge finds a famous artifact in the dungeon, immediately becoming excited by his discovery. He thinks about the enormous benefits he could receive if he gifts the object to the royal family, such as treasures, lands, or even a promotion in his noble title. The girl confronts Count Eldridge, accusing him of trying to steal the credit for conquering the dungeon and defeating its boss. The Count responds angrily, claiming that originally the victory should have been his, and accuses her group of stealing his merit. Meanwhile, the two young ones watch, frustrated and suspicious of the Count's intentions. The girl insists that the dragon's carcass is enough proof to confirm who really defeated the dungeon's boss, demanding that Count Eldridge stop trying to manipulate the situation. However, the Count smiles maliciously, planning to eliminate all evidence, including the monster's carcass, as they are isolated in the mountains, with no other witnesses. Count Eldridge activates his lineage magic called Yahello. A powerful magic circle appears behind him as he summons the winds of the south, north, and divine, preparing to unleash a large-scale and devastating spell. The Count releases his lineage magic arrogantly, provoking the girl and stating that she, being defective, would never be able to break his spell. He claims that magical strength is everything in that country and despises anyone he deems weak. The girl and the boy prepare, aware of the threat they face. The Count challenges the girl, saying that if her magic really were superior, he would have to accept her arguments and retreat. Katya, despite being angry, acknowledges that his magic is indeed powerful and understands that she will need to overcome this somehow. The boy then approaches and offers her advice, suggesting a way forward in the situation. The boy explains that the activation of magic is strongly influenced by the user's emotions. He believes that Katya's difficulty may be related to confused or misdirected emotions during the use of her magic. He emphasizes that what really matters is the sincerity of what one feels, as it adds emotional strength to the spell. According to him, many people fail to understand their own feelings, which ends up directly affecting their magical performance. Katya deeply reflects on the true reason she is using magic at that moment. At first, she thinks it's to put an end to the Count's abuses or because she was provoked by him. However, she realizes these are only apparent reasons. The real reason, more intimate and sincere, is her desire to act with justice and righteousness as a noble. Katya realizes that, until now, she had been repressing her feelings in the name of duty and the image of an exemplary noble. Remembering the expectations placed on her, she understands that she was merely following what others expected. But in that moment, facing the reality before her, she finally recognizes the true feelings she carries in her heart. Overcome by her true feelings, Katya releases her magic with intensity. She expresses her outrage at seeing the Count try to take credit for something he didn't even participate in, ignoring all the effort and risk she and others faced. Her determination grows, fueled by indignation and the desire for justice, making it clear that she will no longer accept this kind of disrespect. Katya finally activates her lineage magic completely, surprising the Count with her power. Eldridge is confused as he realizes the spell is unlike anything he has ever heard of. With firmness and determination, Katya directly confronts him, saying that he should be ashamed of his actions. Katya invokes the magic Soteria Trivia, summoning armed skeletal warriors that charge with force against the Count. Eldridge, filled with fear, retreats in panic, in the face of the spell's intensity, unable to react to the true power she has awakened. The Count tries to defend himself, saying that Katya's magic is just an appearance and threatens that it could further tarnish her reputation. He tries to intimidate them, but the boy responds with irony, reminding him that the Count himself said there were no witnesses. With a provocative smile, he suggests they dispose of all evidence, returning the threat with the same words the Count had used earlier. The boy provokes the Count, insinuating that if he were defeated by Katya's magic, everyone would believe he was killed by a monster, as the remaining magical signature would point to her. Meanwhile, Eldridge panics, ordering the creature to be removed and shouting orders out of control. The boy remains calm, raising his hand and making it clear that he now has control of the situation. One of Katya's allies knocks out the Count's knights, saying that he needed to release his pent-up anger. Surprised and panicked, Eldridge falls to the ground, begging for mercy. The boy, with a calm and firm gaze, makes it clear that the decision is now in the Count's hands. He knows exactly what he must do if he wants to be spared. Defeated and without an escape, Count Eldridge gives in, acknowledging his defeat. With a defeated expression, he declares that the artifact belongs to the group, recognizing their legitimate right to the conquest of the dungeon. Katya, the boy, and the others watch the staff floating before them, now officially in their hands. With the Count fleeing humiliated, the group celebrates in safety. Katya, surprised by her own strength, asks the boy if he helped her in any way. He denies it, stating that the power came from her. She becomes emotional, realizing that this was the first time she managed to use such a strong magic on her own. The boy praises Katya, saying that it was the most beautiful execution of a spell she has ever done. Still surprised, she admits that, even though it's magic inherited from her noble family, she feels that something is still missing. He encourages her, stating that this is not the limit of her power and that she must feel that too. Katya asks if he would also be able to awaken a power like hers. With a confident smile, he says he believes so, revealing that he has a personal desire related to her magic. He expresses his wish to use that incredible magic, and Katya, moved, says that he doesn't need to hold back. It's the least she can offer in return for everything he has done for her. A few days later, in a quiet moment at the Duke's residence, Katya enjoys a cup of black tea, praising its flavor. The boy reveals that he used to prepare this tea for his former master frequently. She comments that he is very good at it, and he responds contentedly, happy to have gotten her taste right. Hermes impresses the mansion servants with his domestic skills, being praised for performing tasks as well as a professional. Katya, hearing him offer to do anything she asks respectfully, is so surprised and unresponsive that she ends up choking on her tea. Concerned, the others rush to check if she's okay. After the tea accident, one of the servants tries to ease the tension and soon comments to Katya that her feelings for Hermes are quite obvious. Katya enters denial, saying she can't admit that, justifying the social status difference between them and how he probably views the relationship. Still, she can't hide how affected she is. Katya feels confused about her own feelings, unsure of what Hermes would think of her after the recent breakup of her engagement. She fears seeming fickle. While the servants try to comfort her, Katya reflects on how Hermes has changed. He used to be cheerful and innocent, but now he seems more mature and distant, which leaves her even more uncertain about how to approach him. Katya admits, even though she feels selfish, that she would like Hermes to show more interest in her. Even though he complimented her, he did it casually, which left her frustrated. The servant quickly understands her feelings and concludes that Katya wants to see the more naive and shy side of Hermes, the boy from before, more emotional and spontaneous. Katya, embarrassed, ends up agreeing. The servant, excited, says there's a clear way to make Hermes show more feelings. Katya needs to go on a date with him. The direct suggestion completely catches Katya off guard, leaving her speechless and shocked by the idea. The chapter begins with the servant's bold proposal to arrange a date between Katya and Hermes. She suggests that they stroll through the capital like ordinary young people, enjoying the moment and showing off all Katya's charm. Excited, she already thinks about scheduling everything, while Katya, desperate, tries to contain her friend's enthusiasm and prevent everything from being decided without her permission. The servant grabs Katya's attention, noticing that she's exhausted with dark circles under her eyes from not resting since the dungeon conquest. She reminds Katya that she spent the night reading reports of monster damage. Surprised, Katya discovers that even her father, Lord Jurgen, was concerned about her well-being. In another part of the mansion, he admits that since the death of his wife, Katya has dedicated herself to fulfilling her role as a noble. Katya is surprised to learn that her father regrets her losing some of her freedom by dedicating herself so much to her responsibilities as a noble. He believes that she also deserves to act like a girl her age and have fun every once in a while. Touched by his words, Katya decides to gather her courage and invites Hermes to go out, determined to see where it leads. The next day, Katya and Hermes go out together to stroll through the royal capital. Hermes observes the city with nostalgia, remembering when he was a child. He thanks Katya for the invitation, saying that he had already thought of visiting the place, and he is visibly happy with the experience. Katya, a bit embarrassed, reacts shyly, still getting used to the moment. Before the date, the servant consoles Katya, saying she doesn't need to worry about the breakup with the prince, since it was clear there was no affection between them and that it was the prince who proposed the union. She encourages her to be honest with her feelings and wishes for Katya to enjoy the day. Touched by the words, Katya begins to accept her feelings and gains the courage to move forward. Katya remembers Hermes' words about how the sincerity of feelings strengthens magic. With a light smile and sparkling eyes, she extends her hand with determination, finally accepting her own feelings and ready to express them without fear. Katya, embarrassed but determined, holds Hermes' hand as they walk together. Surprised, he asks the reason, and she tries to cover up the gesture, saying there are many people in the capital and it would be a problem if they got lost. Even blushing, she pretends it's natural, but her gesture reveals her true feelings. Katya, still holding Hermes' hand, excitedly guides him through the capital. She shows him the main sights of the city, like the market and residential areas, explaining everything naturally. Hermes follows attentively, surprised by her enthusiasm and by the new dynamic between them. Hermes feels a strong sense of nostalgia while walking with Katya, remembering when she used to take him out for walks whenever he dedicated himself too much to studying magic. Reliving that moment makes him smile, but upon meeting familiar faces along the way, he and Katya become embarrassed by their hand-holding, trying to hide their embarrassment. As they walk, Katya and Hermes are approached by merchants who recognize her and thank her publicly. They say that before going to the capital, Katya helped them escape a big mess involving a dishonest supplier. Thanks to her intervention, the store was able to avoid bankruptcy. Hermes is surprised to hear this, realizing that Katya has a positive impact on people even without flaunting it. Katya tries to downplay her merits, saying she was just fulfilling her duty as a noble. But the merchant insists that few nobles would care about a regular store like theirs. Soon after, noticing the two of them holding hands, she asks if they're on a secret date. Katya panics and tries to cover up, saying she's just showing the city to her new assistant, while the merchant watches the scene, laughing discreetly. The merchant invites Katya and Hermes to visit her jewelry store, specialized in sales to nobles. Katya feels a bit awkward but accepts. Hermes, however, reveals that he doesn't understand much about jewelry, surprising Katya, who thought all nobles had this kind of interest. She then comments that, despite this, she's interested in fashion and likes to dress well. Katya reveals to Hermes that, as much as she likes fashion, she never felt it was worth getting dressed up for someone. She speaks sadly about her former fiancé, saying that no matter what she did, he would never truly see her. Hermes listens in silence, touched by her sincerity. Hermes says he has always liked beautiful things, and that the reason he fell in love with magic was because he found it beautiful. He comments that the same applies to people, and if he had the chance to see someone already beautiful become even more charming, he would like that. When he says he would love to see Katya wearing a jewel from the store, she is completely surprised and blushing at his sincere words. Katya is completely embarrassed after Hermes' comment about her wearing a jewel. The saleswoman, sensing the mood, teases them, saying that things are heating up, wishing happiness to the couple. Desperate and blushing, Katya interrupts everything, hurriedly pulling Herm out of the store, trying to explain that it is not what it seems. Later that night, she remains frustrated, shouting that she cannot believe what happened. Katya continues irritated and embarrassed, wondering how Herm can say such awkward things so calmly in public. Even remembering his words about wanting to see her even more beautiful, she hides her face in the pillow, blushing. Later, she talks to Layla and learns that there will be a celebration in her honor for presenting an artifact to the royal family. Katya asks for help to choose the dress she will wear to the party, saying she wants to look well-dressed. She surprises Layla by showing concern for her appearance, something she hadn't prioritized before. Touched, Layla agrees to help, and Katya also mentions a store where they want to choose an accessory to match. The day of the celebration arrives. Several nobles are gathered in the hall, and Hermes observes the environment. Impressed by the number of important people, he reflects on being there as Katya's companion, still wondering if he was truly the most suitable for this role, although he had been strongly suggested for it. Katya appears at the party wearing an elegant dress, leaving Hermes completely speechless with her beauty. Her presence draws attention, marking a significant moment between them. Katya shyly asks how she looks in the dress, clearly nervous. Hermes is momentarily stunned, completely impacted by her beauty, not knowing what to say. Hermes holds Katya's hand, and even though he tries to find the right words, he simply says sincerely that she looks incredibly beautiful. Katya, surprised and embarrassed, can barely react. During the party, everyone starts commenting on Katya, her beauty, impeccable manners, and even her progress with magic. Eldridge's name comes up, and it quickly spreads that she managed to drive him away with lineage magic. Hermes realizes that everyone's attention is on her. Lord Jurgen thanks Hermes for helping Katya overcome her difficulties with magic. Hermes humbly responds, saying that he just gave her the opportunity. Jurgen, satisfied, reaffirms that he made the right choice by trusting him. Hermes asks why Lord Jurgen trusted him without clear guarantees. Jurgen replies that, in addition to the possibility that Hermes may have connections to the Fenribird house, the main reason was the fact that he genuinely trusted Katya, and Hermes also demonstrated the same trust in her. Jurgen reveals that he has an idea of who Hermes' master is. He says that only one person could have granted such extraordinary magic, her. Jurgen mentions that his late wife had a connection with this mysterious woman. However, he reassures Hermes, saying that no one besides him seems to have made the connection between the origin of the magic and this woman. Hermes is surprised to realize that Katya's mother may be connected to the mystery of his magic. Jurgen advises him to go to Katya, and Hermes walks away thoughtfully, recognizing that Jurgen is not an ordinary person for deducing so much from just his words. As he walks, a butler announces him in front of Katya. Hermes finds Katya being approached by a man named Karl von Hartnett, a count from the West. He has come with a marriage proposal, claiming to have heard that Katya overcame her magical limitations. Katya tries to politely refuse, but the count insists that she meet his son at least once. Hermes watches the situation cautiously. Katya firmly informs him that her engagement with the second prince was broken the previous month and asks Count Hartnett to reconsider his proposal. However, the Count ignores her request, praises Katya's intelligence and talent, and criticizes the prince for giving up someone so valuable. Hermes observes in silence as the Count's insistence begins to annoy him. The second prince unexpectedly appears, interrupting the conversation with a threatening look and an intimidating aura. He demands to know what was said about him, making it clear that his intention is to confront directly anyone who mentioned him. Hermes immediately recognizes the imposing man. It is the second prince of the kingdom, Katya's former fiancé, and, more importantly, the one directly responsible for his own expulsion. The shock is visible on his face as he remembers who gave the order for the banishment. Hermes and the second prince stare at each other in front of the hall's staircase, where the atmosphere is heavy with tension. Hermes recognizes the prince as the one directly responsible for his expulsion. Amid the charged atmosphere, a new figure appears, Sarah beside the prince. Katya, surprised, immediately recognizes her. The second prince, Asura, unexpectedly appears in the hall, drawing the attention of everyone. Hermes watches in surprise as the guests question the prince's presence. The tension rises with the arrival of this figure, who no one expected to see at the event. Hermes recognizes Asura as Katya's ex-fiancé and the one responsible for her banishment years ago. He questions the reason for his presence at a party in honor of Katya's achievements. Meanwhile, Katya stares at Sarah firmly, and Asura is interrupted before he can say anything, surprised by her initiative. The second prince, Asura, arrogantly declares that he considers Katya useless. He confronts Count Hartnett for proposing marriage to her, insinuating that it would be the same as disrespecting his authority. Hartnett, visibly frightened, tries to justify himself by saying he just heard rumors. Asura dismisses the excuse and dismisses everyone's presence at the party, even though it's in honor of his ex-fiancée. Prince Asura accuses Karl von Hartnett of treason, claiming that his words and actions indicate intentions to rebel. Asura publicly declares him a criminal, stating that his presence at the party was meant to correct this false impression. Karl panics, begs for forgiveness, and tries to defend himself by saying it's all a misunderstanding, while the guards restrain him in front of everyone. Prince Asura mocks Katya's achievements, insinuating that she was deluded by her recent fame and victories, including overcoming her magical flaw and recovering a rare artifact. He diminishes her accomplishments, calling them lies, and questions whether she misses the position of being his fiancée. Katya tries to respond firmly, denying any falsehoods, but Asura interrupts her authoritatively. Asura explodes in anger, accusing Katya of manipulating conversations to her advantage. Without allowing for further discussion, he publicly rejects her, stating that he will never marry her again. Katya firmly returns the rejection with clarity. Asura then insinuates that he has already found someone else, ending the situation with disdain and indifference. Asura reveals his new fiancée to everyone, Sarah von Hartmann, daughter of a noble. The introduction is cold and strategic, with Sarah maintaining a serious expression as she takes the place once held by Katya. Asura excessively praises Sarah, exalted her beauty, shyness, and magical talent as superior to Katya's, ignoring the fact that she comes from a family of lower status. Katya, surprised, confirms that she knew Sarah from school. The reunion between the two is tense as their shared past begins to emerge. Katya looks at Sarah as someone unprepared for the weight of being royalty's fiancée and confronts her, questioning if she has the courage to handle everything this position demands. Katya's firmness leaves Sarah speechless, and Asura intervenes angrily, trying to end the conversation. Asura, attempting to reverse the situation, accuses Katya of being jealous and cruel to Sarah in the past, claiming she used her position to intimidate her at school. The accusation surprises those present, who begin to doubt Katya after hearing the prince's words. Asura insists in front of everyone that his words are true and pressures Sarah to confirm his accusations. Meanwhile, Katya realizes that no matter how they tried to defend themselves, no one there would dare doubt a prince's word. Under the pressure, Sarah hesitates but ends up confirming the prince's words despite visible uncertainty. Asura takes advantage of the moment to publicly accuse Katya, claiming that her true face has finally been revealed. Prince Asura begins to manipulate the audience, saying that a young woman considered defective couldn't awaken magic legitimately, insinuating that Katya used tricks. The crowd, influenced, begins to doubt her achievements. Hermes watches the ease with which everyone accepts the prince's words. Suddenly, a huge monster appears on the grounds of the assembly hall, shocking the guests. One of the guards attempts to contain it, but the creature is clearly powerful and poses an immediate threat to the venue. Hermes and Katya run toward the scene of the attack after hearing the chaos. There, they encounter a knight facing an immense and threatening creature, a wyvern. The presence of the monster spreads even more panic among the attendees. With the wyvern threatening everyone, Katya orders Hermes to prepare for battle. As the soldiers retreat from the danger, Prince Asura challenges Sarah to prove her worth by showcasing her magic in front of everyone. Katya realizes that the appearance of the monster was orchestrated. The convenient presence of Prince Aster and his initiative to lead the defense don't seem like coincidence. As everything unfolds as part of a carefully crafted plan, Sarah prepares to act. Sarah activates her lineage magic in front of everyone, invoking a powerful healing spell. A soft light envelops the area, instantly healing the wounded in the hall and leaving everyone impressed by her power. Sarah continues her magical chant, revealing that she has a dual aptitude for lineage magic. As everyone watches in awe, she casts an even more powerful spell, making it clear, that her power exceeds expectations. Even the prince is surprised by the revelation. Sarah successfully finishes her magic, completely sealing the wyvern inside a powerful magical prison. The creature struggles, but it is fully contained. A mysterious man enters the scene, praising her achievement and taking responsibility for dealing with the rest. The prince begins to invoke a grand magic, surrounded by flames and sacred symbols. His spell summons an aura of celestial judgment. The prince activates his most powerful lineage magic, Ahura Mazda, enveloping the area with overwhelming energy. His confident gaze and arrogant smile showed that he is certain of his victory, ready to judge everyone around him with the absolute power he has invoked. The prince finishes his attack with a devastating blow of holy flames, incinerating the monster mercilessly. With a cold look, he declares that the creature's fate was sealed the moment it dared cross his path. The monster is consumed by the flames as it screams in pain, disappearing completely. The explosion of power is so intense that it forces everyone present to instinctively protect themselves. And a wave of energy sweeps through the hall with overwhelming force. The body of the monster is thrown to the ground, charred and defeated. The smoke still rises as the group watches in silence, observing the end of the battle. The atmosphere is heavy, and the guests stare at the scene, shaken by the power they have witnessed. Prince Aster, surrounded by the commotion of the public, takes the opportunity to exalt himself and declare his strength to the country. Confidently, he announces his engagement to Sarah von Hartmann, stating that she will be the foundation of his future reign. The crowd reacts with enthusiasm, praising his power as if he were a national hero. With Aster's announcement being acclaimed, Hermes observes the situation with a critical eye. He states that in this country, everything is decided by the strength of hereditary magic. Aster's influence doesn't come from justice, but from the power he wields. Hermes concludes that no matter how much they fight, the nobility will always follow this unequal system, a reflection of the distorted reality of that society. Hermes, reflecting on everything he has witnessed, recalls his master's teachings about the decadent nobility, satisfied only with what they have inherited. Now, he fully understands. The capital, adorned with prestige and power, is actually a place corrupted by laziness, arrogance, and a false sense of merit. He faces this reality with contempt, fully aware of how distorted the prevailing system is.